Phantasm wasn't supposed to exist. A 22-year-old director with no money, a cast of friends and family who'd never acted, a villain played by a Grammy-winning music journalist who'd never been in a horror film, and a silver sphere that would become one of the most iconic weapons in horror history, built for almost nothing and operated with fishing line. Don Coscarelli made this movie over 2 years in fragments, running out of money constantly, shooting whenever he could scrape together enough cash to buy film stock. The result was a nightmare that felt like a nightmare, disorienting, dreamlike, wrong in ways you couldn't quite explain, and hidden inside its surreal imagery is a story about death and grief so raw that most people miss it entirely. These are the 12 most disturbing facts about Phantasm, and buried in them is the truth that this film was never really about monsters. It was about something much worse. Number 1. Don Coscarelli was only 22 years old when he started making this film, and he did almost everything himself. Most directors that age are still learning, still assisting, still hoping someone will give them a chance. Coscarelli didn't wait. He'd already made 2 low-budget features as a teenager. By 22, he decided to make a horror film that would put him on the map. He wrote the script. He operated the camera. He edited the footage. He even helped build the sets. There was no studio support, no experienced crew to guide him, just a young man with a vision, and absolutely no reason to believe he could pull it off. The film took over 2 years to complete, not because of creative delays, because he kept running out of money. He'd shoot for a few weeks, go broke, wait months, then shoot again. The production was held together by desperation and stubbornness. And somehow it worked, because Coscarelli understood something most young directors don't. That's number 2. The surreal nightmare logic wasn't a mistake. It was the entire point. Phantasm doesn't make traditional sense. Scenes shift without warning. Time feels unstable. Characters behave strangely. The plot seems to follow dream logic rather than movie logic. For years, some critics dismissed this as amateur filmmaking, a young director who didn't know how to structure a story properly. They were wrong. Coscarelli designed it this way deliberately. He wanted Phantasm to feel like an actual nightmare, the kind you have at 3 in the morning when you're sick with fever, where things almost connect but don't, where you can't trust what you're seeing, where the rules keep changing. He studied how dreams actually work and built his film around that architecture. The disorientation audiences felt wasn't a flaw, it was the feature. The whole movie is a bad dream you can't wake up from, and the scariest thing about bad dreams is what they're really about. Number 3 reveals the truth hiding under the horror. Number 3, Phantasm is secretly about grief, and the monster is death itself. Here's what's actually happening in this film. Mike and Jody are brothers. Their parents just died. They're processing that trauma when Mike becomes convinced that something evil lurks in the local mortuary. The Tall Man, a sinister figure who steals corpses and transforms them into something inhuman. On the surface, it's a monster movie, but look closer. Mike is a child who's just lost his parents. He's terrified of losing his brother too. He's become obsessed with death, literally watching funerals, following hearses, sneaking into mausoleums. The Tall Man isn't just a villain. He's the personification of death itself, unstoppable, patient, coming for everyone eventually. Mike's journey through the film is the journey of a grieving child trying to understand mortality, trying to fight something that can't be fought. And the ending, which we'll get to, makes this reading undeniable. But first, you need to understand who brought the Tall Man to life. Number 4 is about the most unlikely horror icon ever. Number 4, Angus Scrimm was a Grammy-winning music journalist who'd never been in a horror film. His real name was Lawrence Rory Guy. Before Phantasm, he wrote liner notes for record albums, classical music mostly. He won a Grammy for his album notes in 1974. He was an intellectual writer, a man who seemed to have nothing to do with horror cinema. Coscarelli met him through a mutual connection and saw something in his unusual appearance. Tall, gaunt, with a face that seemed carved from something ancient. Scrimm had minimal acting experience, but he understood how to create presence, how to move slowly and deliberately, how to make a simple word terrifying. When he growls "boy" in that deep rumble, something primal activates. You believe he's not human. You believe he's been stalking humanity for centuries. Scrimm played the Tall Man for nearly 40 years across 5 films. He became synonymous with the role, a music journalist who accidentally became one of horror's greatest villains. And he did it all with almost no resources. Number 5 shows how they made the impossible possible. Number 5, the flying sphere was built for almost nothing and operated with fishing line. The silver sphere is the film's most iconic image. A chrome ball that flies through the air, sprouts blades, and drills into victims' heads. It looks like it cost a fortune. It cost almost nothing. Coscarelli and his team built several sphere props for different purposes. Some were on wires, some were on rods, some were thrown. The flying effects were achieved with fishing line and careful camera angles. The drill effect used practical tubing to pump fake blood. The whole thing was held together with ingenuity and desperation. When you watch the sphere attack scenes, you're watching a masterclass in low-budget problem solving. Every angle was chosen to hide the limitations. Every cut was designed to create the illusion of smooth flight, and it worked. Over 40 years later, those scenes still hold up because practical effects done cleverly age better than expensive effects done lazily. But not everything Coscarelli created made it to the screen. Number 6 reveals what was lost. Number 6, 20 to 30 minutes of footage were cut, and some of it may never be seen. The original cut of Phantasm was significantly longer. Coscarelli has mentioned in interviews that he removed substantial material during editing. Some of this footage expanded character moments. Some added additional nightmare sequences. Some apparently went even deeper into the film's mythology. Most of it has never been released. Not on home video, not in special editions, not even in the much celebrated 4K restoration from 2016. Some of the footage may simply be gone, lost to time and the chaos of low-budget production. Other material might exist somewhere in Coscarelli's archives, waiting, but audiences have never seen Phantasm as it was originally conceived. They've only seen the trimmed version, the version that already feels long and dreamlike and strange. Imagine what the full cut must have been like, and that's not the only thing hidden from view. Number 7 is about the production itself. Number 7, the 2-year production caused visible continuity problems, and Coscarelli left them in. Here's what happens when you run out of money constantly during a shoot. You stop filming. Months pass. You start again. Your actors age. Their hair changes. They gain or lose weight. In a big studio production, this would be a disaster. They'd reshoot everything, match the footage, fix the discontinuity. Coscarelli couldn't afford that, so he embraced it. If you watch Phantasm carefully, you can see the seams. Actors look subtly different from scene to scene. Hair lengths don't quite match. Something about faces changes almost imperceptibly. Rather than destroying the film, this actually enhanced it. Remember, Phantasm operates on nightmare logic. In dreams, things shift without explanation. People transform. Details change. Visible production gaps became part of the film's unsettling texture, an accident that turned into art. And the accidents didn't stop there. Number 8 reveals what the cast was really doing. Number 8, most of the cast were friends and family, not professional actors. Michael Baldwin, who played Mike, was a teenager with minimal experience. Reggie Bannister was Coscarelli's friend and a working musician, not an actor. Bill Thornberry, who played Jody, had done small roles, but nothing significant. These weren't Hollywood professionals pretending to be ordinary people. They were essentially ordinary people in a Hollywood nightmare, and that authenticity shows. The relationships feel real because they were real. The awkwardness feels genuine because it was genuine. The fear feels true because these weren't trained actors manufacturing emotion. They were friends going through something strange together. Coscarelli's instinct to use the people around him, rather than seek professional talent, gave Phantasm something most horror films lack: actual humanity beneath the horror. You care about Mike because Baldwin wasn't skilled enough to create distance between himself and the character. You believe in Reggie because Bannister brought his own gentle oddness to the role. And that humanity made what happens to them actually matter, which brings us to the ice cream truck. Number 9. Number 9. Reggie's ice cream truck became iconic, but it almost wasn't in the film. Reggie Bannister really did work as an ice cream man. Coscarelli decided to incorporate that into the character. Ice cream truck wasn't a prop. It was real, just borrowed and filmed. Something about the image became instantly memorable. An ice cream man fighting supernatural evil. The friendly jingle of the truck against the darkness of the mausoleum. Innocence colliding with death. Truck became such a strong visual symbol that it returned in the sequels, became part of the franchise's identity, all because Coscarelli looked at his friend's actual job and thought, that's perfect. That's the kind of creative decision that separates good low-budget filmmaking from bad, using what you have instead of lamenting what you don't. finding the strange poetry in real life and putting it on screen. And Coscarelli found more than poetry. He found something that would haunt audiences for decades. Number 10 is about the location that made everything feel wrong. Number 10, the mausoleum was real, and it's even creepier in person. Coscarelli shot Phantasm at several real locations around California. The mausoleum interiors used Dunsmuir House in Oakland and other genuine mortuaries and funeral spaces. These weren't sets built on a soundstage. They were actual places where bodies were prepared, where funerals were held, where death was processed and packaged and sold. You can feel it on screen. Something about the walls, the corridors, the weight of the air. These spaces have absorbed grief, have witnessed endings, carry something invisible that cameras somehow capture. Coscarelli knew what he was doing. He wanted authenticity in his nightmare. Real death infrastructure photographed and transformed into something worse. When Mike creeps through those corridors, he's creeping through places where corpses have actually laid. The horror doesn't feel like a movie because parts of it aren't a movie. They're real places with real histories and real residue, and that residue never really washes off. Not from the film, and not from the franchise that followed. Number 11 tracks the impossible legacy. Number 11. The same cast returned across 5 films spanning nearly 40 years. Most horror franchises recast constantly. Actors age out, move on, die. The continuity breaks. Phantasm did something remarkable. Michael Baldwin came back. Reggie Bannister came back. Angus Scrimm came back every single time. Final film, Phantasm Ravager, was released in 2016, 37 years after the original. Scrimm was 89 years old. He died just months after its completion. The franchise maintained impossible continuity. You watch the characters age in real time across the series. Mike goes from boy to man. Reggie's hair thins. The tall man somehow becomes more ancient, more terrible. It creates something strange and sad. A horror franchise that's also accidentally a meditation on mortality, on watching time claim everyone you care about, on fighting death, even knowing death always wins. The tall man haunted these characters for 4 decades. And then, finally, time caught up to everyone. But before that ending, there's one more thing to discuss. Number 12 is about the final scene of the original and what it really means. Number 12, the ending reveals that none of it may have happened, or all of it already did. The final minutes of Phantasm pull the rug out completely. Everything Mike experienced might have been a dream, or a premonition, or a grief hallucination, or real. The film refuses to clarify. It leaves you suspended between possibilities. But here's the reading that makes the most sense. Mike's parents are dead. His brother might also be dead or about to die. The tall man represents the death that's coming for everyone Mike loved. The whole film is Mike's mind trying to process loss that's too enormous to face directly, so he transforms it into a monster he can fight, an enemy he can resist, something with a face and a name and a weakness. But you can't fight death, not really. And in the final moments, the tall man is still coming, still there, still waiting. Because death never stops. It just waits for you to finish pretending you can escape it. That's the real horror of Phantasm. Not the sphere, not the dwarves, not the endless corridors of the mausoleum. The horror is simpler and worse. Everyone you love will die, and eventually you will too. And no one can save you, not even in dreams. Phantasm was made by a 22-year-old with no money, a cast of amateurs, and a Grammy-winning journalist in monster makeup. It shouldn't have worked. It definitely shouldn't have launched a franchise spanning 4 decades, but something about its nightmare logic spoke to audiences. Something about the tall man stalking through those corridors tapped into fears we don't usually name. Don Coscarelli didn't just make a horror film. He made a fever dream about grief disguised as a monster movie, and the disguise was so good that it took years for people to see what was underneath. Death. Loss, the slow, terrible understanding that we are all losing everyone we love, one by one, until there's no one left to remember us. The tall man is still out there, still waiting, still patient. He's got time. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and drop your favorite Phantasm moment in the comments. The tall man appreciates your attention.